They say the city breathes. I think it chokes. This isn't a city of dreams. This is Hive, and it never sleeps. Because it can't afford to. Welcome, everyone, to a corner of the galaxy where the sky is a memory, and the only light comes from the forge fires that burn day and night. Without end, look around you. Can you see the tops of these towers? No. They disappear into a permanent blanket of smog and shadow, a toxic shroud woven from the exhalations of a billion machines. They call this a hive city, a bastion of the Imperium of man. I call it a tomb, built for the living. The air here, it doesn't just smell of oil and burnt metal. You can taste it. It coats your tongue, a bitter reminder of what this world sacrifices for the endless wars of the 41st millennium. Every street, every hablock, every forgotten alleyway vibrates with a constant, oppressive hum. It's the sound of industry, the heartbeat of the machine. It's the sound of Hive soul being ground into dust, gear by relentless gear. Forget the chirping of birds or the rustle of leaves. Here, the only symphony is the deafening clang of hammers, the roar of furnaces, and the hiss of superheated steam. It's a lullaby that promises no rest, only more toil. This is a manufacturing world, a critical cog in the vast, uncaring engine of the Imperium. The weapons you see on the front lines, the armor that protects the countless soldiers of the Astra Militarum, the very bolts that hold together the starships traversing the void. Many of them were born here in the fiery belly of Hive. This world's purpose is singular: to produce for the Emperor, to produce for the war effort, to produce until the very rock it's built upon cracks under the strain. But at what cost? The people of Enoch are not citizens in the way we might understand it. They are workers, they are components, as replaceable as any gear or piston. From the moment they are born in the cramped, sun-starved lower levels, their fate is sealed. They will work the factorums, maintain the machinery, and breathe the poison that fuels the Imperium's might. Their lives are measured not in years, but in production quotas. A good life is one where you meet your target. A long life is a statistical anomaly. Let's descend, shall we? Leaving the spired Weller districts behind those lofty peaks, where the planetary governor and the Adeptus Mechanicus tech priests might occasionally glimpse a filtered sun, we plunge into the hive proper. This is the mid-hive. The light grows dimmer, the air thicker. Walkways and bridges crisscross chasms so deep you can't see the bottom. Mack trains screech past, metal slugs filled with workers and raw materials, shuttling endlessly between production zones. The architecture is brutal, functional, and ancient. Generations have lived and died within these same walls, their hopes and dreams dissolving into the ever-present smog. The people here are hardy, but worn. Their faces are often smudged with grease, their hands calloused from a lifetime of labor. They don't look up. There's nothing to see. They look forward to the next shift, the next meager meal, the next moment of fleeting rest before the factory sirens call them back. Community exists, but it's a grim, forged-in fire. Sort of bond. They share stories in hushed tones, tales of accidents, of faulty machinery, of enforcers cracking down on unsanctioned gatherings. They pray to the god Emperor, yes, but they also pray to the machine god, the Omnissiah, hoping the spirit of the machine they tend will spare them for another cycle. And below this, deeper still, lies the underhive. If the midhive is a purgatory of labor, the underhive is a true hell. Here, there is no light but what you bring with you. It's a maze of collapsed tunnels, forgotten waste sumps, and ancient, derelict machinery. The air is a toxic soup that can kill the unwary. Mutants, outcasts, and gangers fight for survival in the crushing dark. This is where everything the hive discards ends up waste, refuse, and people. The rule of the Imperium is a distant echo here, replaced by the law of the blade and the bullet. Yet even in this abyss, life clings on. Scrap scavengers, known as sumdivars, risk mutation and death to retrieve valuable archaeotech. From the toxic sludge, gangs carve out territories, creating their own brutal forms of society. Strange cults fester in the darkness, whispering promises of salvation or power to those with nothing left to lose. The Underhive is a testament to the sheer, stubborn resilience of humanity, its ability to adapt and endure even in the most horrific conditions imaginable. It's a place of nightmares, but it's also a place where legends are born, legends of cunning gang leaders, of finding lost treasures, of surviving against all odds. The rulers of this world, the true masters of Hive, are a blend of imperial nobility and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The planetary governor, residing in his opulent spire palace, oversees the administration and the endless paperwork that keeps the tithes flowing to Terra. But the real power lies with the fabricator Locum and his conclave of magi. They are the keepers of the machines, the high priests of the cult Mechanicus. They see the workers not as people, but as bio. Their logic is cold, efficient, and utterly without compassion. A drop in production is a far greater sign than a rise in the mortality rate. These tech priests are more machine than man, their bodies augmented with cybernetics to better interface with the holy mechanisms of the fact. They move through the hive like specters, their red robes a stark contrast to the grimy gray of the environment. They chant binary litanies to appease machine spirits and perform rites of maintenance that are more religious ceremony than engineering. To question their authority is to question the will of the Omnissiah itself, a heresy that is swiftly and brutally punished. So, what happens when the relentless pressure of Hive becomes too much? The human spirit, even one forged in this industrial crucible, can only be pushed so far. Unrest is a constant, simmering threat. A faulty machine can cause a production stoppage, which can lead to punishment, which can lead to riots. A charismatic leader can rise from the masses, preaching a gospel of rebellion against the faceless oppressors. These uprisings are almost always doomed. The Adeptus Arbites, the unyielding judges and enforcers of imperial law, descend with brutal efficiency. Squads of armored officers, wielding shock mulls and shotguns, restore order through overwhelming force. The ringleaders are made an example of, their broken bodies displayed as a warning. The hum of the machinery returns, the incident is filed away, and the production quotas are adjusted to make up for lost time. And this is the cycle of Hive. Toil, suffering, a flicker of rebellion, brutal suppression, and a return to toil. It's a world perpetually on the brink of collapse, held together by faith, fear, and the unceasing demand for war materiel. The city doesn't breathe. It's a monument to the grim determination of humanity, but also to its infinite capacity for cruelty in the name of a greater cause. When you look at Elasgon or Elemeros battle tank in the lore, remember worlds like this. Remember that every piece of war gear is paid for, not just in resources, but in the lives and suffering of billions of souls who will never see the light of a natural sun. Hive is not unique. There are thousands of worlds just like it scattered across the Imperium, each one a churning, smoking furnace sacrificing its people on the altar of war. This is the reality of the 41st millennium. It's not just about glorious heroes and epic battles. It's about the crushing, soul-destroying machinery that makes it all possible. It's about the choking air, the constant noise, and the people who live and die in the shadow of the Hive. This is Hive, the city that never sleeps, the city that chokes on its own purpose. Thank you so much for joining me on this bleak journey into the heart of the Imperium. If you found this exploration of Hive fascinating, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the dark corners of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Let me know in the comments what you think about Hive worlds, or what part of the lore you'd like to see covered next. Welcome back, citizen workers, to another broadcast from the heart of the Imperium. Today, we're not just looking at the grand machines of war, but at the very pulse that drives them. The rhythm of work. Forget the grand tapestries of heroes and saints for a moment. Instead, listen closely. Can you hear it? That endless, grinding beat. It's the song of the factory floor, the anthem of a million souls dedicated to a single, glorious purpose. They call it a 12-hour shift. 12 on, 12 off. It sounds simple, almost balanced, doesn't it? But here, in the sprawling manufactorums that cling to the Hive city's spine like metallic fungi, time has a different meaning. When was the last time off truly meant rest? Ask any soul on the line, and you'll get a hollow look, a shrug, or maybe a bitter laugh muffled by the omnipresent noise. Rest is a luxury. A myth whispered between the deafening crash of hydraulic presses and the high-pitched scream of plasma welders. Off just means it's your turn to shuffle back to your cramped hablock, your ears still ringing, your body aching with a fatigue so deep it feels etched into your bones. It's just a pause before the cycle begins anew. Let's walk the floor. See them, rows upon rows of men and women, their faces smudged with grease and grime, illuminated by the cold, flickering lumen strips overhead. They move with a synchronization that's both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling. It's a dance, but a soulless one. Here, on the Lasgan assembly line, a worker attaches a power pack. Click. The weapon moves on. The next worker calibrates the targeting cogitator. Where? The weapon moves on. A third tests the firing stud. Click. On and on it goes, thousands of times a shift. Each movement is precise, economical, perfected through endless repetition. There's no room for error, no space for a thought that doesn't pertain to the task at hand. They aren't just workers. They've become components in the great machine they serve. The individual is lost, absorbed into the collective motion of the line. Over there, it's the ammunition sector. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and ozone. Watch the hands, calloused and scarred, as they feed brass casings into the stamping machines, bang on bang, relentless percussion that shakes the very foundations of the building. They fill the casings with propellant, seat the explosive tips, and pack the finished rounds into crates, stenciled with the Aquila. Each round is a prayer to the God Emperor, a promise of deliverance against the alien, the heretic, the mutant. The workers don't see the individual bullets anymore. They see quotas, numbers on a data slate, that dictate their survival. They see the glowering face of the foreman, his augmetic eyes scanning for any sign of slowness, any break in the rhythm. A moment's hesitation could mean a docking of rations, or worse, a visit from the enforcers. So they keep moving, their bodies screaming in protest, their minds numbed by the sheer, overwhelming monotony. And then there's the armor plate division. The heat here is a physical presence, a suffocating blanket that presses down on you. Rivers of molten adamantium flow through channels, spitting sparks like angry beasts. Massive hydraulic presses, each the size of a hablock, slam down with earth-shattering force, shaping the glowing metal into the ceramite plates that will protect the Emperor's chosen warriors, the astromil. The noise is a physical assault, a constant roar that leaves you disoriented. Workers, clad in heavy, fire-retardant gear, guide the plates with long poles, their movements slow and deliberate, like priests performing a sacred, dangerous ritual. A slip, a moment of inattention, and the forge will claim you. The memorials etched into the soot-stained walls are a testament to those who fought. Their names already fading, their sacrifice just another drop in the ocean of industry. The 12 hours off are a cruel joke. It can take 2 hours just to navigate the choked transit systems back to your hab unit. A tiny box stacked 100 stories high. You force down your nutrient paste, a gray, tasteless sludge that offers sustenance, but no pleasure. You might have a few precious hours to yourself, but what is there to do? Your body is a vessel of pain, every muscle screaming. Your mind is a void, emptied by the repetitive strain of the assembly line. Sleep, when it comes, is fitful, haunted by the phantom sounds of the factory, the clang of metal, the hiss of steam, the drone of machinery. You dream of assembly lines that stretch into infinity. And then the chrono chimes, its shrill cry dragging you back to consciousness. It's time. It's time. Time to put on the same stiff, stained overalls. Time to join the silent, shuffling river of humanity flowing back towards the manufactorum. Time for the rhythm to claim you once more. There's a grim beauty to it. If you look from a distance, the manufactorum breathes. It inhales workers in the grey perdone and exhales them into the polluted twilight. It's a living entity, its heart the roaring plasma furnaces, its veins the conveyor belts, its lifeblood, the sweat and toil of its people. Every lasgun, every shell, every armor plate is infused with a tiny fragment of a human soul, a piece of a life sacrificed for the survival of the Imperium. This is the reality for countless billions across the galaxy. This is the unyielding rhythm of work in the grim darkness of the far future. It's not a story of glory, but of endurance. It's the story of how, in the face of oblivion, humanity keeps fighting, one 12-hour shift at a time. The gears must turn, the quotas must be met, and the war must be fed. And so, the dance continues, synchronized and soulless, until the day the machine, finally, mercifully, stops. Thank you for joining this look into the industrial heart of the Imperium. The lives of these workers are the foundation upon which our galaxy stands. If you found this dispatch illuminating, please consider liking this transmission and subscribing for more glimpses into the 41st millennium. For the Emperor, in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is no privacy. There is only the ceaseless, cold gaze of the machine. Today, we descend into the forge worlds of the Adeptus Mechanicus, not to marvel at their arcane technology, but to witness the oppressive reality for those who toil beneath their iron rule. We're talking about the ever-present eyes in the darkness, the overseers and their silent, floating extensions. Thus, imagine a factory floor that stretches 4 miles, shrouded in smog and the glow of molten metal. Your every move, every breath, every beat of sweat is not just observed, but meticulously recorded. This isn't the work of a mere human supervisor. It's the Adeptus Mechanicus. And their definition of oversight is absolute. The men and women who stand as overseers are often more machine than flesh themselves. Their eyes are replaced with optical lenses. They never blink, never tire, and never miss a detail. They don't walk the floor to offer encouragement. They glide on mechanical legs, their presence a constant, chilling reminder that you are a cog in a vast, uncaring engine. But the overseers are only part of the surveillance network. Drifting through the acrid air like metallic ghosts are These are the repurposed craniums of once loyal servants of the Imperium, now fitted with anti-grav generators, data slates, and multi-lensed optical sensors. They hover silently over your shoulder, their red optic lights a constant pinprick in your peripheral vision. They are the silent witnesses, the disembodied spies of the machine god. Let's listen to the words of a former Factorum worker, a man named Vaughn, who managed to escape. He spoke of the psychological toll. You never felt alone, he'd say, but you were lonelier than ever. You'd be tightening a bolt, and a skull would just appear. It would tilt, its lens zooming in on your hands. You'd know, right then, if your grip was off by a fraction of a degree, it was being logged. A data stream was sent somewhere deep in the cogitator banks, adding to your file. This isn't just about ensuring productivity. It's about enforcing a terrifying level of conformity. The system is designed to root out inefficiency with ruthless precision. A moment's hesitation, a slight tremor in the hand from exhaustion, a tool placed a centimeter out of its designated spot, it's all recorded. These are not minor infractions to be corrected with a word of warning. In the calculus of the Mechanicus, inefficiency is a form of heresy. It's a flaw in the grand design, a dissonance in the symphony of the forge, and the consequences are dire. Vaughn tells stories, not of reprimands or docked pay, but of colleagues who simply bunnies. One day, a worker named Alera was noted for a repeated micro-delay in her assembly line task. An overseer approached, its metallic claws resting on her shoulder. The official term spoken was reassignment. Alara was led away, and no one ever saw her again. Was she sent to a more grueling, hazardous section of the forge? Was she lobotomized and turned into a mindless servitor, doomed to perform a single task for eternity? Or, perhaps most chillingly, was her skull selected to become the next floating monitor? Her last vestiges of humanity stripped away to serve the very system that condemned her. The fear this system breeds is a tool in itself. Workers push themselves beyond the limits of human endurance, not for glory or reward, but to avoid the cold, analytical judgment of the lenses that never blink. The constant stress, the paranoia of being watched, grinds them down. They become twitchy, their movements precise but devoid of life. They learn to suppress any sign of individuality, any flicker of emotion that might be deemed inefficient. Their humanity is layer by layer, until they are almost as mechanical as the machines they serve. This surveillance isn't just confined to the factory floor. The servo skulls drift through the hablocks, their optical sensors peering through grimy windows. They monitor nutrient paste dispensers to ensure no one takes more than their allotted ration. They listen in the cramped dormitories, their audio sensors tuned for any word of dissent, any whisper of rebellion. In the world of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the concept of a private life is a fantasy. You are a resource, an asset belonging to the Forge, and your entire existence is subject to audit. The overseers, with their augmetic limbs and emotionless voices, are the enforcers. They are the judges, and often the executioners. They don't raise their voice. They don't need to. A simple gesture, a quiet command spoken in binary cant, is enough to seal a worker's fate. They are the priests of this mechanical religion, and their scripture is data. Their sacrament is efficiency, and their punishment for the unfaithful is oblivion. Think about the sheer terror of that existence. To know that your every flaw is being catalogued by an unfeeling intelligence. To see the skull of a former friend drift by, now a tool of your oppression. This is the price of progress in the 41st millennium. The glorious war machines of the Imperium, the towering titans, the holy bolters, they are all forged in a crucible of fear, built on the backs of people who have been stripped of everything but their function. They are watched by lenses that never blink, judged by minds of cold logic, and ultimately consumed by the very machine they're forced to build. This intricate web of surveillance is a cornerstone of the Adeptus Mechanicus's power, ensuring that their vast industrial empire runs with a precision that borders on the supernatural. It is a dark reflection of the Imperium as a whole, a system that demands absolute sacrifice and offers only servitude in return. The next time you see an image of a mighty Imperial knight, remember the countless souls monitored, judged, and discarded to create it. Remember the silent, floating skulls, and the unblinking gaze of the overseers. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. If you found this exploration of Imperial surveillance fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more lore. Let me know in the comments what other dark corners of the Warhammer 40,000 universe you'd like to explore next. Until then, may you be safe from the unblinking eye of the machine. Scene opens on a dimly lit, industrial-style set. Sounds of distant machinery and faint, echoing chants are heard. Greetings, citizens of the Imperium, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we ventured deep into the heart of the Hive city, past the gleaming spires and down into the Underhive, to explore a fundamental aspect of daily existence for billions. The rations of faith. It's a concept many of you have asked about, a grim reality summed up by a common saying whispered in the chow queues. The food is gray. The sermons are what fill us. This isn't just a metaphor. For many, it is the literal truth of their survival. So, what exactly are these rations? Forget the lavish feasts of planetary governors or the nutrient-rich supplements of the Astra. For the common hive worker, a meal is often a scoop of something colloquially known as corpse starch or, more generically, Soylent's viridians. It's a gray, gelatinous paste, possessing a texture that defies easy description and a taste that is, at best, neutral. It's produced on an industrial scale, designed for one purpose and one purpose alone, to provide the bare minimum caloric intake necessary to fuel another grueling work cycle. The exact composition is a closely guarded secret of the Adeptus Mechanicus and frankly, it's a secret most people are happier not knowing. The rumors are as grim as you can imagine, involving recycled organic matter of all kinds. The truth is likely even more efficient and terrifying. This paste is the fuel for the human engine of the Imperium. It keeps the arms moving, the legs walking, and the factories churning. But it does not, and cannot, feed the soul. That's where the second, and arguably more crucial, part of the meal comes in. Every single meal shift, without fail, begins not with the clatter of spoons, but with a broadcast. From vox grills mounted on every wall, the voice of a Ministorum Vox Breacher rings out. The broadcast crackles to life, silencing the low murmur of the hungry mess. The prayer begins, a powerful litany, reminding the workers of their sacred duty, of the Emperor's divine sacrifice, and of the eternal war against the heretic, the alien, and the mutant. The sermon is the true sustenance. It speaks of the nobility of toil, the sanctity of suffering in the Emperor's name. It tells them that their hunger is a small sacrifice, a purification of the flesh that brings them closer to the Emperor's light. Their weariness is a testament to their devotion, their monotonous labor a prayer enacted with their own hands. The preacher's voice is a master class in oratory, rising from a somber prayer to a thunderous crescendo that echoes the roar of the very machines they operate. This spiritual nourishment is a carefully engineered tool of social control. A full belly might lead to idle thoughts, to questions, to dissent, but a soul filled with righteous fire, a mind focused on piety and duty, that is the foundation upon which the Imperium stands. The Adeptus Ministorum understands human nature better than most. They know that a body can endure incredible hardship if the spirit remains unbroken. The sermons are designed to reframe their suffering. The bland, tasteless paste isn't a sign of their low station. It's a test of their faith. The gnawing emptiness in their stomachs isn't neglect. It's an opportunity to find fulfillment in the Emperor's grace. It transforms a miserable, deprived existence into a holy crusade fought not on a battlefield, but in the heart of a factory. Imagine the scene. Thousands of exhausted workers, their faces smudged with grime, standing in silent rows. In front of them, a lukewarm scoop of gray matter sits in a dented metal tray. But their eyes are not on the food. They are lifted, looking towards the Vox grill, as if it were a holy icon. They recite the prayers along with the broadcast. Their voice is a low, rumbling chorus that fills the vast mess hall. They are told that their obedience is their shield, and their faith is their sword. They are reminded that there are far worse fates than hunger, the fate of the faithless, the damned, those who fall to heresy and chaos. Compared to eternal damnation, a lifetime of eating nutrient paste seems like a blessing. It's a powerful, intoxicating message, and for many, it is all they have. The sermon is the seasoning that makes the unpalatable food bearable. It is the hope that gets them through another 16-hour shift. The psychological impact of this cannot be overstated. It creates a population that not only accepts their lot, but embraces it as a badge of honor. They might look at a well-fed upper hiver, not with envy, but with a kind of pity. That poor soul, they might think, his belly is full, but his spirit must be empty. Untested by true hardship, his faith flabby and weak. This is the genius of the Ministorum's approach. They have turned a logistical necessity, the difficulty of feeding trillions of people, into a theological virtue. The rations feed the body just enough to work, while the sermons feed the soul enough to believe. It is a perfect, self-sustaining cycle of labor and piety. The workers are filled with a sense of purpose, a belief that their meager existence has cosmic significance. They are not just cogs in a machine, they are soldiers in a spiritual war, and their hunger is their battle scar. Of course, not everyone buys into it completely. In the darkest corners, whispers of dissent can be heard. Jokes are made about the flavor of the day being ash or despair. Some simply tune out the sermons, their spirits too broken to be reignited by words. They eat the paste mechanically, their eyes vacant, fueled by nothing but the dregs of their survival instinct. These are the ones the preachers watch for, the ones whose faith is faltering. For them, a visit from a confessor may be in order to reignite their faith through more ... persuasive means. The system has little tolerance for those who refuse their spiritual meal. But for the vast majority, the faith holds. It has to. It is the only thing that makes their lives livable, the only narrative that gives meaning to their toil. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, you are what you eat. And for the teeming masses of the Hive cities, they eat blandness and devotion, sustenance and sermons. They are fueled by gray paste and golden promises, a diet that keeps the great machine of the Imperium grinding ever onward, powered by the empty stomachs and full hearts of its faithful citizens. The rations of faith are more than just a meal. They are the bedrock of imperial society in the Hives. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the Underhive. The Emperor's light is brightest in the darkest of places. If you found this exploration enlightening, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the lore of this vast and unforgiving universe. Your support helps us continue to shed light on the shadows. Stay fightful, and we'll see you next time. The Emperor protects. The air in here. It tastes of rust and desperation. Every morning, I wake to the same deafening symphony. The shriek of tortured metal, the rhythmic pound of 1,000 hydraulic presses, the groaning gears that turn the wheels of this thankless empire. They call this place a manufactorum, a testament to the Emperor's glorious industry. But, dun, eri, inte, grease-choked, guts of it all. We have another name for it. The Grinder. My name is Vaughn, and this is my story, or what's left of it. I remember when I first arrived. The sheer scale of it all was overwhelming. Catwalks, like steel spiderwebs, crisscrossed a chasm so deep you couldn't see the bottom. The noise was a physical blow, a constant pressure on your skull. But there was something else, too. A flicker of pride, maybe. We were building the tools of the Imperium, the very weapons that kept the darkness at bay. Or so the picked casters screamed from every wall, their flickering images showing heroic guardsmen and shining space marines. We were the backbone, the unsung heroes. A noble lie, I learned soon enough. The first lesson in the Grinder is that you are not a person. You are a component. You have a number, a station, and a quota. Mine was Station Gamma 7, final assembly for Lesgon power packs. Simple work, they said. Slot the diathium cell, connect the induction coil, seal the casing. Repeat. 1,000 times a shift. Your hands bleed, your back aches. But you don't stop. Ju Kante. The overseer, a corpulent man named Grok, with a bionic eye. That word, with every blink, made sure of that. He'd stalk the gantries, his electromole buzzing a constant threat. A moment's hesitation, a fumbled component, and he was there. His voice a gravelly roar over the din. The good Emperor does not reward sloth scum. We used to have a saying, the quota is the only truth. It was our gospel, our tormentor. Every morning, the numbers would flicker to life on the big slate above the main floor. Food was a tasteless, nutrient-rich paste dispensed from humming machines. It kept you alive, but it didn't give you joy. It just fueled the machine that was your body, so you could return to your station and fuel the larger machine that was the factory. Water was rationed, tasting of recycled chemicals. We were cogs, lubricated just enough to keep from seizing. The worst part isn't the work, though. It's not the hunger or the exhaustion. It's the people you lose. Not just 2 accidents, though those are common enough. A misstep on a slick gantry, a moment of inattention near a stamping press, and someone is gone. A brief pause, a quick clean-up by the servitors, and the line moves on. No, the worst part is the culling, the reductions. It started a few cycles ago. A message from the administratum, read out by the master of the manufactorum from his high balcony. Increased efficiency. Consolidation of assets, redundant personnel, reassignment. We all knew what it meant. They were cutting the workforce. The first day, every 10th worker was pulled from the line. Armed enforcers marched them away. We never saw them again. We heard whispers, servitor conversion, reassignment to the penal legions, or just a quick, efficient end in the reclamation pits. The next day, the quota hadn't decreased. It had risen. Every day the quota rises. I'd muttered to Alara, the woman who worked the station next to mine. She had been here longer than I had, her hands a roadmap of scars and burns. She just nodded, her eyes fixed on her work, and every day, she replied without looking up. Fewer hands remained to meet it. She was right. The reductions became a weekly ritual. They'd take the slow ones, the old ones, the ones who complained. The fear was a constant, acrid taste in the back of your throat. It made you work faster, push harder. You'd ignore the pain in your joints, the burning in your eyes. You'd look at the person next to you not as a friend, but as a rival. If their output slipped, maybe the overseer would take them instead of you. It was a poison that turned us against each other. Now, each of us does the work of 2, maybe 3. My station used to have a partner who prepped the casings. He was taken last week. Now I do his job in mine. My fingers fly. A desperate, frantic dance of muscle memory. Slot, connect, seal. Prep, slot, connect, seal. Don't think, don't feel. Just move. Burnout isn't just a state of mind here. It's a death sentence. The moment you slow down, the moment your numbers dip, you're marked. And their replacements, they come faster than the funerals we're not allowed to have. Yesterday, they brought in a new batch. Young kids, barely more than children, their faces pale with terror and awe. I saw one of them, a boy no older than my own nephew might have been, stumble and drop a tray of power cells. Overseer Grok was on him in a second. I didn't watch. I couldn't. I just focused on my station. The metallic clicks of my work, a desperate prayer. Slot, connect, seal. I see. Ilara station is empty this morning. No one says a word. The gantry servitors have already scrubbed it clean. A new worker, a woman with fear-wide eyes, is being shoved into place by an enforcer. She fumbles with the tools, her hands shaking. I want to help her, to show her the rhythm, but I can't. To help her would be to slow myself down. I'd be marked. So, Etern Hawaii. I focused on the quota slate, the new, impossible number burning into my brain. 15,000 units. This is life in the Emperor's glorious industry. We are told we are building the future, defending humanity. But from down here in the dark, it feels like all we're building are the walls of our own tomb, one Lasgan power pack at a time. The quota never ends. Eat whose grows, consuming everything, until there's nothing left but the endless, grinding noise, and the silence where a friend used to be. Screen opens to a flickering cogitator screen, displaying arcane data streams, and the symbol of the Adeptus Mech. The view then shifts to reveal the narrator. Hello and welcome, believers in the Omnissiah and seekers of knowledge. Today, we delve into the heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus, a realm where steel is sacred and efficiency is the highest virtue. We're not talking about the grand battles or the colossal titans today. Instead, we're focusing on something far more intimate, yet infinitely more terrifying for the common servant of the machine god. The inspection. Imagine you're a lowly menial. Task unit 734, assigned to the assembly line of a lemon rust battle tank on a forge world like Mars or Riza. Your life is a monotonous cycle of bolting armor plates, connecting power conduits, and chanting litanies of activation. It's grueling, thankless work, but it has a rhythm. You know your station. You know the sacred movements. But then, one day, the rhythm breaks. The klaxons, usually reserved for orbital bombardment or demonic incursion, blare a different tuna single, chilling, resonant chime that echoes through the manufactorum. The overseers begin to crack their electro-whips with a new fervor, their voices strained with a fear that eclipses their usual cruelty. The great lumens shift, casting the entire hall in a stark, unforgiving crimson light. And you know, with a cold dread that seeps into your very bones, that they have arrived. They come in red robes. The priests of perfection. These aren't just any tech priests. These are the overseers of the Holy Standard, the auditors of the Omnissiah's will. They are Ingenseer's magi, and sometimes even high-ranking fabricators, whose sole purpose on this day is to ensure that every single cog, every wire, and every rivet is a perfect tribute to the machine god. To them, a factory is not a place of labor. It is a temple, and the machines being built are not mere tools of war. They are idols, physical manifestations of divine knowledge. As they process down the assembly line, their augmented forms glide with an unnerving silence. Their optical sensors, glowing with cold blue or green light, scan every surface. They don't just look, they perceive asterisk. They see the molecular integrity of the steel, the exact voltage running through a power cell, the precise torque applied to a bolt. Their mechadendrites, metallic tentacles tipped with microscopes, calipers, and arcane scanners, unfurl and dance across the machinery like inquisitive serpents. They are testing, measuring, and comparing everything against the sacred standard template. Constructs. The holy blueprints handed down from the dark age of technology. For the tech priests, deviation is not just an error. It is heresy. A bolt tightened a fraction to loose is not a mistake. It is a blasphemy against the litany of torque. A weld that is microns thinner than the SDC dictates is not a flaw. It is a stain on the soul of the machine. The Omnissiah is a god of absolute, quantifiable perfection. Anything less is an insult, a sin that invites the weakness and corruption of the universe to creep into their holy work. This belief is the bedrock of their entire culture. It's what allows them to maintain technology for 10,000 years. It is also what makes them so utterly terrifying. Let's return to you, Task Unit 734. The red-robed Magos stops at your station. Its face is a cold mask of brass and steel, its remaining flesh pale and waxy. It does not speak to you. You are beneath its notice, part of the machinery. Its attention is fixed on the turret stabilization gyro you just installed. A long, slender mechadendrite extends, its tip glowing faintly as it scans the component. The seconds stretch into an eternity. The only sound is the hum of the factory and the frantic, desperate thumping of your own heart. The priest's head tilts, a subtle, bird-like motion that signals ... something. Its optical sensors flash once. Then, a harsh burst of binary, a static-less screech of displeasure, erupts from its vocal. It's a language you don't understand, but the meaning is clear. One of the priest's assistants, a hulking legs mechanic, steps forward. It consults a data slate. Its own augmetics worry as it cross-references the Magos' findings with your work logs. The charge is read aloud in cold, clipped, Gothic. Contamination of the sacred deviation, 0.01% organic impurity. What does this mean? It means that when you applied the ritual lubricating oils, a microscopic particle of your own skin, a fleck of dust from your rags, contaminated the mixture. It is a flaw so infinitesimal that it would be undetectable by any normal means. But these are not normal means. This is the divine audit of the machine cult. The punishment is immediate and impersonal. It's not about anger or revenge. It's about purification. It's about demonstrating the cost of imperfection. The Lex Mechanic might simply point, and a nearby skittery guard will level a radium carbine, ending your existence in a silent flash of cancerous energy. Or perhaps, for a sin this grave against the machine, a more symbolic sentence is required. The Magos itself might use a high-powered arc piston to simply obliterate the offending part and your hand along with it. The pain would be immense, but brief. You would be dragged away, another failed component to be recycled. Your name code struck from the roster. Your co-workers wouldn't dare look. They would simply redouble their efforts, their prayers now laced with a fresh wave of terror, hoping the priests of perfection pass them by. This process is repeated across the entire menu. A team of tech priests might spend weeks, even months, crawling over a single starship under construction. They will test the purity of the promethium in the fuel lines, the integrity of the Geller field emitters, the response time of every single weapon system. Any worker, from the lowless furnace stoker to the junior engine seer, overseeing a whole section, can be found wanting. The consequences vary. A minor infraction might result in a benevolent punishment, such as your mind is wiped, your limbs are replaced with tools, and you are slave to the very machine you failed, doomed to serve it mindlessly for the rest of your biological existence. A more serious failure, especially from a junior priest, could lead to the rite of pure thought, where their organic brain is scooped out and placed in a jar, forced to compute endless data streams as a lesson in pure, untainted logic. And for widespread or systemic failures, the Fabricator General of the Forge World might order the entire workforce purged and replaced. Entire generations of laborers, millions of souls, can be deemed flawed and simply deleted. This brutal, absolute commitment to quality control is, in a grim way, what keeps the Imperium running. In a galaxy filled with unimaginable horrors, a single faulty plasma conduit can cause a void ship's reactor to overload, killing millions. A poorly calibrated teleport Homer can accidentally merge a squad of space marines with a bulkhead. The Mechanicus knows this. Their cruelty is not born of malice, but of a desperate, fanatical pragmatism. Perfection is not a goal. It is the only acceptable state of being. These inspections are more than just quality control. They are religious ceremonies. As the priests move, they chant litanies. They anoint machinery with sacred oils. The execution of a flawed worker is seen as a necessary sacrifice to appease the machine god. A ritual cleansing to ensure the Omnissiah's continued favor. They are reinforcing the central dogma of their faith. The flesh is weak, but the machine is eternal. Every punishment, every execution, is a visceral sermon on that truth. So the next time you marvel at the sheer scale and power of a Baneblade tank or a Gloriana-class battleship, remember the cost. Remember the trillions of anonymous workers living in constant fear. Remember the cold, silent processions of red-robed priests, the auditors of the divine machine, who move through the great workshops of the Imperium like angels of a cold and unforgiving god. They are the guardians of quality, the enforcers of dogma, the priests of perfection. And to fall short of their standard is to be judged not just inefficient, but heretical, and to be erased from existence with the cold, logical finality of a machine. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Forge. If you enjoyed this exploration of the lore, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the 41st millennium. Let us know in the comments what other terrifying aspects of the Imperium you'd like to see us cover next. Until then, may the Omnissiah bless your circuits. Hello lore masters and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, exploring a theme that resonates at the very heart of the Imperium. The crushing weight of obedience. We'll do this through the eyes of one man, Guardsman Vaughn, and his whispered confession that strikes at the very foundation of Imperial faith. "I once believed the Emperor watched over us," he'd say, his voice barely a rasp over the hum of the troop transport's engine. "Now, I think he merely counts." Imagine that. For a man raised on the milk of the Imperial Creed, a man whose every breath is supposed to be a prayer to the God Emperor. This thought is more dangerous than any Xeno's blade. It's the ultimate heresy. The line between faith and fear, for Vaughn, has become so blurred it's practically invisible. He's standing on a knife's edge, caught between the conditioning of a lifetime and the brutal reality of his service. Think about the world Vaughn grew up in. From the moment he was born, the Aquila was branded onto his soul. The sermons of the ecclesiarchy, the litanies of hatred for the mutant, the heretic, the alien, these weren't just lessons. They were the air he breathed. The Emperor wasn't just a distant ruler. He was a watchful, protective father, the savior of mankind. Every victory was his divine will, every sacrifice a noble offering on the altar of humanity. This is the bedrock of the entire Imperium. It's what allows trillions of souls to endure unimaginable hardship. The belief that someone, somewhere, cares, that their suffering has a purpose. Vaughn carried this belief with him into the Guard. He clutched his lasgun like a holy relic, and chanted the litany of accuracy with genuine fervor. He saw his commissar not as a threat, but as a spiritual guide, the embodiment of the Emperor's unwavering resolve. When his comrades fell, he didn't just see them as dead. He saw them as martyrs, their souls ascending to sit at the golden throne. This faith was his armor, stronger than any flak plate. But armor can be pierced, and the galaxy is full of sharp things. For Vaughn, the chipping away began slowly. It wasn't one cataclysmic event, but 1,000 tiny cuts. It was the order to charge across a field so saturated with artillery that it was nothing more than a meat grinder, with no strategic value he could comprehend. It was seeing a starving population on a supposedly compliant world gunned down for a minor infraction. Their pleas for aid answered with It was the cold, calculating logic of his commanders, who spoke of acceptable losses in the millions, their voices devoid of any emotion. He started to notice the numbers. Everything was about numbers. The number of rounds expended, the number of bodies recovered, the percentage of casualties deemed sustainable. The tithe of manpower, of resources, of lives, fed into the vast, uncaring machine of the administratum. The emperor, he was taught, was a loving father, but a father doesn't count his children like coins. A father doesn't measure his love in tithe grades and casualty reports. And so, the doubt began to fester. The emperor protects. He'd repeat the phrase, the words feeling like ash in his mouth. He'd close his eyes and try to picture the golden light of the Astronomicon, but all he'd see were the faces of the dead. Their expressions not of blissful martyrdom, but of shock and terror. He'd stand for morning prayers, his voice joining the chorus of his platoon. But the words were hollow, a ritual devoid of meaning. He was an actor, playing the part of a faithful soldier, terrified that someone would see behind the mask. This is the grim, dark reality. The fear isn't just of the enemy in front of him. It's the fear of the commissar behind him, whose bolt pistol is the ultimate arbiter of faith. It's the fear that his entire life, his entire belief system, is a lie. But even worse, it's the fear that it's not a lie. The fear that the Emperor Asterisk is Asterisk watching. But he's not a benevolent protector. He's a cosmic accountant, tallying up the cost of holding the galaxy, and Vaughn and everyone he knows are just figures on a balance sheet. Red ink. Expendable assets. I once believed the Emperor watched over us. Now I think he merely counts. This is the tragedy of the common soldier in the 41st millennium. He is asked to have absolute faith in a god who may only see him as a statistic. He is expected to die with a prayer on his lips for an Imperium that will forget his name before his body is cold. Vaughn's confession isn't just his own. It's the unspoken terror of trillions. It's the quiet, knowing horror that in a galaxy of gods and monsters, the most terrifying thing of all is not that you are alone, but that you are simply a number. This internal conflict, this struggle between ingrained doctrine and observed reality, is what makes the Imperial Guard so compelling. They are not demigods in power armor. They are ordinary men and women armed with little more than a flashlight and a prayer, standing against the horrors of the galaxy. And for many, like Vaughn, the greatest battle is the one fought not on the battlefield, but in the silence of their own minds, where faith dies and a terrible, cold arithmetic takes its place. What do you think? Is this nihilistic view the ultimate truth of the Imperium, or is it just the crack in one man's faith? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The lore of this universe is so rich because of these complex, human struggles. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the grim darkness. If you enjoyed this exploration of Imperial faith and the lore of Warhammer 40,000, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the 41st millennium. Until next time, stay safe, and may the Emperor... Well, you know, we called them the disappeared, though we all knew where they went. That single, chilling sentence hangs in the smog-choked air of every Hive city, a ghost story whispered by soot-stained lips from Necromunda. To Terra? It's a truth. Everyone knows, but no one dares to speak aloud. In the sprawling, vertical nightmares that are the Hive cities of the Imperium, failure isn't just an option. It's a one-way ticket to oblivion. Imagine living your entire life without ever seeing the sun. Your world is a steel labyrinth of rusted gantries, flickering lumen globes, and the constant, grinding roar of industry. You are born into a designated role, a cog in a machine so vast it defies comprehension. You work, you sweat, you bleed for the glory of the Emperor, and you pray you're efficient enough to see another cycle. Because if you're not, you vanish. They call it the vanishing line. It's not a physical place you can point to on a map. It's a threshold. A line you cross when your productivity drops, when you make a critical error, or when you simply can no longer keep up with the crushing demands of the One day, your neighbor is at their station. The next, their bunk is empty, their meager possessions gone. No one asks questions. To us, is to draw attention, and attention is the last thing you want. The official story. Reassignment, relocation to a lower, less critical sector. But the rumors, the hushed tales shared over cups of stale recaf, paint a much darker picture. They speak of alternative service, a fate far worse than a simple demotion. They say the disappeared are taken to the flesh rites, the biomagi of the Adeptus Mechanicus, hidden deep in the Hive's gut. This is where the true horror begins, in these sterile, blood-soaked apothecariums. The concept of self is systematically dismantled. The individual is judged, not for their soul, but for their raw biological components. Are your arms strong? Is your back sturdy? Do you have keen eyesight? These are the only questions that matter now. Your memories, your hopes, your identity, they are seen as flaws, glitches in the system to be wiped clean. The process is as brutal as it is efficient. The subject no longer a person, but raw material is stripped of their humanity, piece by piece. Lobotomies, memory wipes, and psychoconditioning surgery erase the mind. Flesh is carved away, replaced with worry, augmetics, and cold steel. Limbs are replaced with heavy-duty tools, drills, claws, plasma cutters. The voice box is removed, replaced with a simple voximeter, capable only of chirping binary canticles of obedience. What emerges from the other side is no longer a man or a woman. It is a grotesque fusion of flesh and machine, a mindless drone programmed for a single, repetitive task. They are the ultimate expression of the Imperium's cold, ruthless pragmatism. Nothing is wasted, not even the failed. Think about the sheer, mind-numbing terror of it. The person you were is gone, but a part of you, a biological echo, remains, trapped inside a rewired prison of your own flesh and bone. Your hands, which once held a loved one, are now industrial shears, endlessly cutting sheet metal. Your legs, which once ran through crowded hoblocks, are now pistons, marching in perfect, unthinking unison. You are a ghost in your own body, a silent witness to your own enslavement. And the final, cruelest irony, you are often sent right back to the very place you failed. The new servitor, the one with a familiar build or the faint, old scar under its optical sensor, is put to work on the same production line. Your former colleagues see you. They recognize you. They see the vacant, soulless stare and the mechanical, twitching movements. They see you, and they say nothing. They just work harder, faster. They push themselves to the brink, haunted by the living embodiment of their greatest fear. The servitor is a constant, silent reminder. This is what happens when you fail. This is the vanishing line. They are the walking dead, the ghosts of the production floor. Their presence a far more effective motivator than any foreman's whip or commissar's threat. These aren't just monsters from a distant horror story. They are everywhere in the Imperium. They pilot starships. They load cannons. They clean corridors. They even serve meals in high Gothic halls. A servitor might be made from a disgraced nobleman, a heretical scribe, or a simple factory worker who just couldn't meet their quota. The Imperium does not discriminate in its recycling of human flesh. Every time you see one of these lumbering, cybernetic figures, remember the person they used to be. Remember the family they might have had, the dreams they might have chased. They are the disappeared, found again in a new and terrible form. They are the silent screams in the heart of the Imperium, a testament to the price of failure in the 41st millennium. They are the proof that in the grim darkness of the far future, there are fates far, far worse than death. You think the noise is the worst part of living in a hive city? The constant grind of machinery, the endless shriek of warning klaxons, the roar of 10 billion souls, all crammed into one metal coffin. You get used to it. It becomes a kind of lullaby, the background hum of your entire existence. You learn to sleep through it, to talk, or breathe to live within it. It's the sound of home, if you can call this place. No. The noise isn't the worst part. The worst part is the silence. It doesn't happen often. Maybe once a cycle, maybe less. The kind of event that makes the old-timers clutch their aquillas and mutter prayers to the Omnissiah. A full system power outage. It's not like a flickering lumen strip in your hablock. This is everything. Everything all at once. All at once, the conveyor belts that carry the promethium to the upper spires, they stop. The gargantuan air scrubbers that make the air almost breathable tailwind down. The vox casters that spew the administratums, daily decrees. They go dead. And in that moment, a silence falls. A silence so absolute, so profound. It's like being plunged into the void between stars. It's a physical weight. Your ears reen, desperately searching for the familiar cacophony. People freeze in the grimy streets, their faces turned upward as if they expect the skeeth of metal ceiling thousands of levels above to come crashing down. You can hear your own heart hammering against your ribs. A frantic, tiny drum in the sudden emptiness. You hear the person next to you take a sharp, panicked breath. It's terrifying. It feels unnatural, like the universe is holding its breath. But that's when you hear it. At first, it's just a feeling. A low thrum that vibrates up through the soles of your worn-out boots, through the very ferrocrete and plasteel of the Hive's foundations. It's a rhythm, slow and deliberate. Steady. Thump, thump, thump. It's impossibly deep. A bass note so low you feel it in your bones more than you hear it with your ears. It's the kind of sound a leviathan might make, slumbering in the deepest, darkest ocean trench. And as your senses adjust to the terrifying quiet, as the ringing in your ears subsides, the sound takes form. It's not just a vibration anymore. It's a sound, a colossal, rhythmic exhalation. A vast, mechanical sigh that seems to echo up from the very core of the world. It's the sound of continent-sized pistons moving in perfect, synchronous motion. It's the soft, hydraulic hiss of systems, the size of mountain ranges resetting themselves. It's the slow, steady pulse of plasma flowing through arteries wider than any manufacturing tunnel. It's the machine, the Hive itself. We call it the heartbeat. Sometimes, when the lines fall silent, I can hear it breathing. It's a chilling realization. This city, it's not just a collection of buildings and pipes and people. It's an organism. A single, colossal entity. We're not living asterisk. In asterisk the Hive. We're living asterisk. On asterisk. It's like mites on the skin of some ancient, slumbering beast. All our noise, all our industry, all our lives. It's just surface-level static. Beneath it all, the true mechanism churns on, ancient and unknowable. The priests of Mars, the tech priests, they would say, it's the machine, the animus of the Omnissiah made manifest. They would say it's a sacred rhythm, the pulse of holy industry. They have their rites and their incense, their binary prayers to appease the great machine. They believe they understand it, that they can commune with it. But in that silence, when you hear that sound, Juknote re just as clueless as the rest of us. They're just chanting at a hurricane, hoping it doesn't note setem. The sound is not angry. It's not benevolent. It's simply there. It's the sound of pure, indifferent power. A power so immense that our entire civilization is just a footnote to its existence. It was here long before my ancestors crawled into this spire. And it will be here long after my bones have turned to dust and been recycled into nutrient paste. It's a humbling and deeply unsettling thought. We scurry around, fighting our petty gang wars, worrying about our daily nutrient rations, serving the Emperor, all while the very ground beneath our feet is alive with a purpose we can't even begin to comprehend. When the power comes back on end, it always does. Eventually, the relief is instantaneous and overwhelming. The klaxons blare back to life with a sudden, ear-splitting shriek. The conveyors lurch into motion with a deafening groan of metal. The voxcasters crackle and spit static before the monotonous voice of an administratum scribe returns. The noise floods back in, a tidal wave of familiar chaos, and everyone lets out a collective sigh of relief. The terror recedes. The world feels normal again. But you don't forget. You can't unhear it. Even now, with the roar of the manufacturum shaking the walls of my hab, I can sometimes feel it. If I concentrate, if I filter out the immediate noise, I can still sense that slow, titanic rhythm. Thump, thump. It's always there, just beneath the surface, the true sovereign of this metal world. It's the sound of the machine, the Hive's own secret life, and it's a constant, terrifying reminder of how small, how utterly insignificant we truly are. It's the deepest, darkest horror of the Hive. Not the gangs, not the mutants, not the it's the quiet heartbeat of the monster we call home. Thanks for tuning in to this little slice of Hive life. If you've ever felt that deep thrum yourself, let me know in the comments below. What do you think it is? The Omniscience Pulse? Or something else entirely? Don't forget to like this transmission and subscribe for more tailies from the Underhive. Stay safe, and try not to listen too closely to the silence. The rhythm of the forge was the only song I'd ever known, a relentless, pounding symphony of metal on metal, the hiss of steam, the groaning of gears that had turned for 1,000 years. It was the heartbeat of the Imperium, a pulse that beat in my own chest, and the chests of every soul chained to the assembly line. We were cogs in a machine greater than ourselves, they told us. Small, replaceable parts serving a glorious, divine purpose, and we believed it. What choice did we have? My name is Vaughn. I was a line worker in Sector Gamanin, the guts of the great manufacturer. My hands were calloused, my back perpetually sore, my face smudged with grease that never truly washed away. But I was good at my job. I knew the song of the machines. I could tell by the pitch of a whine if a hydraulic was low, or by the shudder in the floor plates. If a press was straining, it was a grim sort of pride, the pride of a survivor. Beside me worked Alara, her movements quick and precise, her eyes, when you could catch them in the dim light, holding a flicker of something more than just exhaustion. And then there was old Kale, who'd been here since before I was born. His face, a roadmap of scars from minor mishaps and close calls. We weren't friends, not in the way the stories from the old world describe. We were Aeonate, bound by shared misery and the unspoken understanding that one wrong move meant oblivion. The day it happened started like any other. The morning chime had screamed us awake in our cramped hablocks. The nutrient paste we choked down tasted, as always, of rust and regret. We shuffled in silent columns to our stations, the air thick with ozone and the sweat of 10,000 workers. The overseers watched from their high gantries, their faces hidden behind polished chrome masks, their electroprods humming with quiet menace. The shift began. The symphony started its daily performance. For hours, it was the same. The clang, the hiss, the roar. My world was the lever in my hand, the glowing ingot before me, the sweat stinging my eyes. The noise was so constant it became a form of silence. Then, a new sound cut through the din, a high-pitched screech, a sound of metal tearing, of teeth being ground to dust. It wasn't the familiar groan of an overworked piston. This was something violent, something final. Everyone in Gamanin froze. We all heard it. We all felt the vibration through the soles of our worn-out boots. It came from Section Delta, the colossal stamping press we called the Maw. It was a beast of a machine. 30 men working in its shadow defeated sheets of raw plasteel. The screech ended with a deafening crack, like thunder splitting the sky, followed by a sickening, wet crunch. And then, silence. A true, terrifying silence that the manufacturer had never known. The great heart of the forge had stopped. For a moment, no one moved. We started wide-eyed towards the now still Maw. The air, suddenly empty of its usual roar, filled with something else. The low moans of the injured, the first choked sobs of terror. I saw Alara's knuckles turn white as she gripped her station console. Kale's face was a mask of ashen horror. He'd seen accidents before, but nothing like this. The overseers descended from their perches, not with medkits and rescue equipment, but with their electroprods crackling to life. They formed a cordon, pushing back those of us who had instinctively started to move forward, to help maintain formation. One of them boomed, his voice a metallic rasp through his speaker. "Return to your stations. Production integrity must be preserved. But there was no production. The machine was broken, and so, we learned, were the men who served it. Through a gap in the crowd, I saw it. The Maw's primary gear, a cog the size of a habunit, had sheared from its axle. It had slipped just a few feet, but in its path had been the entire Delta team. The sight was unspeakable. It wasn't a scene of injury. It was a scene of eradication. 30 men gone, reduced to nothing in the time it takes to draw a breath. They hadn't even had time to scream. The press had jammed. A single gear had slipped, and 30 men had paid the price for it. 30 lives snuffed out for a mechanical failure. I felt a cold numbness creep over me, starting in my gut and spreading through my limbs until my whole body felt like ice. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was empty. The sheer, pointless finality of it all was too vast to comprehend. These men had names, families, meager hopes. Now, they were just another variable in a production equation, just another mess to be cleaned up. We expected a repair crew. We expected an investigation, a period of mourning, something, anything that resembled a human response. What we got was the Purge, the chief overseer, a towering figure whose mask was adorned with gilded filigree, strode to the center of the silent floor. He didn't even glance at the carnage. He raised a hand, and a new squad of enforcers marched in, their armor heavier, their weapons more menacing. Section Gamoning. The chief overseer's voice echoed, cold and clear. Your proximity to the compromised Delta unit has designated you a potential source of systemic inefficiency. Your morale is compromised. Your focus is fractured. He paused, letting the words hang in the dead air. To preserve the operational integrity of this manufactorum, this entire section will be purged and replaced. Purged, the word landed like a physical blow. It didn't mean fired. It didn't mean reassigned. In the language of the Imperium, it meant only one thing: elimination. We were being erased, not because we had done anything wrong, but because we had witnessed the failure. We were inconvenient. Our shock, our horror, our grief, these were flaws in the system. And the system corrected its flaws without mercy. The enforcers raised their weapons. There was no negotiation, no appeal. We were just faulty parts to be discarded. The numbness in my veins turned to a blaze of pure, primal terror. I looked at Alara, her eyes wide with disbelief. I saw Kale, the old survivor, shaking his head slowly, a single tear tracing a clean path through the grime on his cheek. He had survived decades of this hell, only to be disposed of like scrap. In that moment, something inside me broke. The belief I'd clung to, the idea that our work had purpose, that our lives had even a fraction of value, it all shattered. We weren't cogs in a glorious machine. We were fuel, and the machine was hungry. As the first enforcer leveled his rifle at Kale, I finally understood. The real monster wasn't the machine of metal and gears. It was the system that fed it, the cold, unfeeling calculus that weighed 30 lives against the production schedule and found them wanting. As the chaos began, my only thought wasn't of survival, but of the lie we had been forced to live, and the terrible, terrible truth that was about to set us free. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If you've ever felt like a small part in a big, uncaring machine, maybe this resonated with you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more tales from the Grimdarkness, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support makes it all possible. Until next time, stay blunt. Welcome, lore masters, to another deep dive into the 41st millennium. Today, we're stepping away from the grand battles and legendary heroes to explore something more intimate, yet just as profound. The daily life and forgotten dreams of an imperial citizen. We're heading down, deep into the suffocating metal canyons of a Hive world. Imagine a world stacked miles high, a city that has devoured a planet. This is home for billions. Our guide today is a man named Vaughn. He's a factorum worker, a cog in the immense machine of the Imperium. His world is a labyrinth of rusted gantries, roaring furnaces, and the perpetual gloom of industrial smog. For Vaughn, the sky is a myth. "I've never seen the stars," he tells us, his voice raspy from a lifetime of breathing recycled, soot-filled air. "Only the light of furnaces." Think about that for a moment. Most of us take the sky for granted, the sun, the moon, the endless sprinkle of stars. For Vaughn, and countless others like him, the only celestial bodies are the roaring maws of plasma reactors that never sleep. His sun is the incandescent glow of molten metal. His moon, the cold, flickering lumen strips that line the under-hive corridors. Life in the hive is a relentless cycle. The wail of the factorum siren is the only dawn and dusk Vaughn has ever known. He wakes in a cramped hab unit, a tiny box shared with his family, the walls thin enough to hear the coughing and murmurs of 100 neighbors. The air tastes of metal and chemicals. The water is recycled, purified just enough to be potable. Food is a nutrient, paste, a gray, tasteless substance engineered for maximum efficiency, not pleasure. Every day, Vaughn joins the human river flowing towards a tide of gray-clad workers, faces etched with fatigue, shuffling through cavernous walkways under the ever-watchful gaze of adept Arbites patrols and cherub servitors, broadcasting liturgies of obedience. The air hums with the drone of machinery, a constant, oppressive sound that burrows into your bones and never leaves. It's the hymn of industry, the prayer of the Imperium. Vaughn's job is grueling. 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, he toils on an assembly line, producing lasgun power packs or shell casings for a war he'll never see, on a planet he's never heard of. The heat is immense, the noise deafening. Accidents are common. A moment's inattention can cost you a limb or your life. The Medicaid facilities are rudimentary, and a serious injury often means being cast out, left to the mercies of the under. There is no retirement, only the slow grind until your body gives out. Yet, even in this bleak existence, whispers of another life persist. Vaughn remembers stories his grandfather used to tell, tales passed down through generations like forbidden relics. Stories of an outside, a place where the sky wasn't a ceiling of plasteel but an endless, open expanse of blue. A world where you could breathe air that didn't burn your lungs, where green things grew from the actual ground, not from hydroponic vats. He said there were worlds, Vaughn recalls, a flicker of something ancient and hopeful in his tired eyes, where people could feel the wind on their skin and see real stars, not just the forge fires. To Vaughn, these stories sound like fairy tales, like the fantastical legends of the god emperors' own battles. How could such a place exist? It defies every law of his reality. The concept of unfiltered air, of a natural world, is as alien to him as a xenospecies. He doubts they ever existed. In the grim reality of the 41st millennium, hope is a dangerous commodity. The ecclesiarchy teaches that suffering is piety, that toil is prayer. To dream of a different life is to question the divine order of the Imperium. It's a form of heresy. The old stories are dismissed as the ramblings of the senile, dangerous fantasies that distract from the holy work of production. And so, Vaughn pushes the thoughts aside. He has a quota to meet. His family needs the meager scrip he earns to buy their rations. Doubts are a luxury he can't afford. He focuses on the rhythm of the machinery, the familiar heat of the forge, the one truth he can rely on. The furnace is real. The production line is real. The endless, grinding duty is real. But at night, in the brief moments of quiet before exhaustion claims him, the dream sometimes returns. A phantom memory of a blue sky, the impossible image of a star, a tiny, distant pinprick of pure, white light in an ocean of black. It's a dream of the sky, a longing for something he can't even be sure is real. For men like Vaughn, trapped in the metal heart of the Imperium, this fragile, impossible dream is the only true act of rebellion they have left. It's a silent testament to the enduring human spirit, a whisper that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, a soul can still look up and wonder. This is the life of just one of billions. It's the foundation upon which the Imperium is built, a foundation of sweat, toil, and forgotten dreams. It's a stark reminder that in the grim darkness of the far future, the greatest battles aren't always fought with bolters and chainswords, but in the hearts and minds of those who have never even seen the stars. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the Hive. If you found this exploration of Imperial life as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Let me know in the comments what other aspects of daily life in the 41st millennium you'd like to see covered. Until next time, stay curious, and may the Emperor protect. The air in Manufactorum Gaminine hangs thick and heavy, a toxic cocktail of ozone, recycled sweat, and the metallic tang of overworked machinery. For 36 standard hours, Vaughn has been bolted to his station, his world shrinking to the ceaseless rhythm of the assembly line. His arms, sinewy and scarred, move with a desperate, practiced speed. But it's a race he's losing. The rhythmic asterisk thump dash clank dash hiss asterisk of the piston before him is a merciless metronome, counting down the seconds of his life. Each component he slots into place is a prayer, a desperate plea to the omnissiah he barely understands. His vision blurs, the glowing runes on the conveyor belt swimming like malevolent spirits. His fingers, raw and trembling, fumble a crucial gear. It skitters away, a tiny, metallic star disappearing into the grimy abyss below his feet. A wave of cold dread washes over him, colder than the recycled air pumped through the vents. He's fallen behind. The quota, that ever-present, ever-demanding God, is now impossibly out of reach. He remembers the words of Overseer Crawl, his voice a gravelly rasp amplified through a Vox grill, words that echoed in the Manufactorum's cavernous space just yesterday. The quota is not a request. It is the will of Mars. Meet the number, or you will be given a new purpose. You will join the machine. Back then, it was a threat, a motivator. Now, it's a prophecy. A sentencia. Vaughn's heart hammers against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the symphony of industry. He tries to speed up, to claw back the lost seconds, but his body is a traitor. His muscles scream in protest, his joints lock, and a fog of exhaustion clouds his mind. The components become a meaningless jumble of shapes and sizes. He can feel 1,000 unseen eyes on him. The cold, optical lenses of the quality control servitors that drift silently overhead. They see his failure. They record his inadequacy. A new sound cuts through the din, a high-pitched, electronic whine, followed by the worry of servos. Vaughn doesn't need to look up. He knows what it is. The servos, not the usual monitoring units, but the grapplers, the enforcers. They descend from the shadowed rafters like metallic angels of death, their optical lenses glowing a baleful red. They hover before him, their silent judgment more terrifying than any scream. His co-workers don't look. They keep their heads down, their movements becoming even more frantic, a desperate attempt to prove their own worth, to avoid his fate. To look is to acknowledge is to falter, and to falter is to be next. In the vast, uncaring machine of the Imperium, pity is a luxury no one can afford. Vaughn is an island, alone in a sea of focused, terrified labor. One of the skulls emits a series of binary clicks, a signal. From the floor grates below, powerful mechadendrites, thick as a man's arm, uncoil and rise like steel serpents. They wrap around Vaughn's legs, his waist, his arms. The metal is cold, unyielding. There's no struggle. He has no strength left to fight. He is simply lifted. His boots leave the grated floor for the last time. The assembly line, his world for so many cycles, shrinks beneath him. He sees the faces of his fellow workers for a fleeting moment gaunt, grimy, and hollow-eyed. Their expressions a mixture of fear and a grim, unspoken relief that it wasn't them. Not to they. The servo skulls guide him towards a large, circular hatch in the floor he's never seen open before. It irises, open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a darkness that seems to swallow the light. A blast of hot, oily air rises to meet him, carrying the scent of sanctified unguents and cauterized flesh. This is it. This is below. This is where the failed components of the human machine are remade. As the mechadendrites lower him into the abyss, Vaughn looks up one last time. He sees the ceiling of the manufactorum, a distant constellation of glowing lumens and tangled pipes. He thinks of the sun, a myth he'd heard stories about, a star he'd never seen. His consciousness is already fading, not from fear but from a profound, soul-crushing exhaustion. His final coherent thought is not one of anger or defiance. It's one of simple, stark realization. The overseer was right. He had failed to meet the number. Now, he would join the machine. His mind, his memories, his very name would be scoured away, replaced by cogitators and holy programming. He would be given a new purpose. He would serve the Omnissiah, free from thought, free from pain, free from failure. Forever, the darkness closes in, and the rhythmic asterisk thump dash clank dash hiss. Asterisk of the factory above becomes a distant, fading lullaby. The story of Vaughn is a grim reminder of the price of failure in the 41st millennium. The line between worker and servitor is reserthine, defined only by the ever-demanding quota. Hello and welcome, loyal subjects of the Imperium. Today, we delve deep into the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, into the life and unlife of one man named Vaughn. His story is a chilling reminder of the price of efficiency in the endless hives that choke the worlds of mankind. Vaughn was just one soul among trillions, a cog in the vast, uncaring machine of a hive city. His days began and ended with the shriek of a factory whistle, a sound that echoed through the smog-choked canyons of metal and rockcrete he called home. He worked the Prometheum forges, a dangerous, grueling job that coated his lungs in soot and his skin in a permanent layer of grime. Every morning, he'd look at his reflection in a shard of polished steel, seeing the weariness etched into his face, the gray in his hair that seemed to multiply with each passing cycle. He was tired of the noise, the heat, the constant pressure to meet quotas that seemed to grow ever higher. His only solace was a small picked frame he kept hidden in his locker. It showed a woman with a kind smile and a child clutching her hand. His wife. His son. They were gone lost to a plague that had swept through their Hablock years ago. But in his mind, they were his reason. He worked not for glory, not for the Emperor, but for the ghost of a promise he made to them to survive. He dreamed of a day when he could afford to move up Hive, away from the toxic fumes and the grinding poverty. A foolish dream, he knew, but it was the only one he had. He often stared up at the impossible spires of the upper Hive, glittering like malevolent stars against the perpetual twilight of the lower levels. Up there, he imagined, life was different. Clean air, real food, a life without the constant threat of industrial accidents or gang violence. Down here, life was cheap. The klaxons, signaling an injury or death, were so common they barely registered anymore. The Adeptus Mechanicus, the techbrists who oversaw the factories, would simply replace the fallen worker. A new body, a new set of hands to keep the production lines moving. Vaughn had a knack for mechanics, a rare talent in the under. He could coax life back into dying machinery with a gentle touch and a whispered prayer to the Omnissiah. His overseer, a man whose face was a mask of cybernetic augments, noticed this. "You have a good mind for the machine, Vaughn," he'd rasped one day, his voice a metallic burr, ashamed to waste it on manual labor. Vaughn didn't know if it was a compliment or a threat. In the Hive, they were often the same thing. He was assigned to more complex tasks, calibrating the massive cogitators that governed the factory's output. It was cleaner work, but more dangerous. One wrong move, one misaligned circuit, and a whole sector of the forge could overload, vaporizing everything in a flash of plasma. He learned to move with a quiet reverence around the humming, thrumming heart of the factory. He began to see it not as a place of work, but as a living entity, a great metal beast with a heart of fire and veins of copper wire. It demanded sacrifice, and the Hive always provided. One shift, the air grew thick with the smell of ozone. A high-pitched whine began to build, a sound that drilled into his teeth. An energy conduit was overloading. Alahem's blatted red light strobing across the cavernous chamber. Panic erupted. Workers scrambled for the exits, trampling each other in their desperation. But Vaughn didn't run. He saw the cascade failure unfolding on the main cogitator screen. If the core went critical, it would take out the entire sublevel. Thousands of lives. He remembered the promise to his family. To survive. But what was survival if it meant leaving others to die? He ran towards the overloading conduit, his tools clattering at his side. The heat was immense, searing his skin. He could feel the raw power of the machine's spirit, angry and untamed. He worked frantically, his hands a blur as he tried to sever the connection, to bleed off the excess energy. The whine intensified, reaching a crescendo. He saw a flash of brilliant white light, felt a pain so absolute it was beyond comprehension, and then nothing. Silence. A concept he hadn't known for years. He drifted in a void, a place without sound or sight or feeling. Was this death? Was this the Emperor's embrace? The faces of his wife and son swam in his consciousness, smiling. He reached for them, a sense of peace washing over him, but something pulled him back, a cold, metallic grip on his soul. Voices, not human, but a binary cant, echoed in the darkness. Viable neural tissue. Extensive trauma. Lobotomy required. Ideal candidate. Flickers of awareness returned, disjointed and terrifying. He felt cold. He saw blurred figures in red robes, their faces hidden behind polished chrome masks, the glint of surgical steel. The low hum of arcane machinery. He tried to scream, but he had no mouth. He tried to fight, but his limbs wouldn't obey. A searing pain shot through his skull, and his memories, his dreams, his love, his grief, all of it began to unravel, burned away by a cold, precise fire. The picked frame of his family shattered into a million pieces of light, and then vanished. Vaughn, the man, was being erased. When he awoke fully, the world was different. It was a stream of data, a flow of binary instructions. His vision was a grid of targeting reticles and diagnostic readouts. His body felt heavy, powerful, and utterly alien. He looked down and saw not hands, but a multi-jointed claw on one arm and a heavy-duty plasma cutter on the other. His legs were thick, pistoned limbs bolted to a torso encased in pitted iron, where his heart had been. A small reactor glowed with a dull, blue light. He was back in the factory, but he was no longer a worker. He was part of the machine. The factory whistle blew, the sound now a command protocol that resonated deep within his new form. He moved without thought, his purpose clear and absolute. He saw malfunctioning, or crusher, a place where a man had been mangled just weeks before. He approached his optical sensors analyzing the fault. His plasma cutter flared to life, excising the damaged component. His clawed hand deftly installed a replacement. The crusher roared back to life. Efficiency 100%. Task completed. Await new directive. He saw other figures like him, their flesh crudely merged with machinery, their eyes vacant and glowing. They were the ultimate expression of the Imperium's ruthless pragmatism. Why waste a body when it can still serve? Why let a brain die when it can be repurposed? He was one of them now. His knowledge of mechanics, the very thing that made him valuable, had damned him to this eternal servitude. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between directives, a ghost of a memory would surface. A woman's smile, the warmth of a small hand in his. The data stream would label it as spurious emotional data, and a jolt of electricity would purge the thought. But the ghosts remained. He would catch a glimpse of his reflection in a polished surface and see a monstrous parody of a man. A flicker of something. Was it horror, despair? Would well up, only to be ruthlessly suppressed by his programming. I see the factory from within now. The gears turn, and I turn with them. The thought was not his own, yet it was the only truth he knew. He was no longer Vaughn. He was Unit 734. His purpose was to labor. His existence was to serve. The Hive had finally and completely consumed him. Not in death, but in a life that was no life at all. He toiled under the watchful eye of the two-headed Aquila, a symbol he once saw as a distant promise of protection. Now, he understood. It was a brand. a mark of ownership. His consciousness, or what little remained of it, flickered inside its servitor, Shel Halfman. He labored still, eternally efficient, his actions precise and he would never feel weariness again. He would never dream of the upper hive. He would never remember the faces of his lost family. He would only work, bathed in the fire of the forges, until his biological components failed and he was scrapped for parts. His last coherent thought, a fragment of his old self, twisted by his new reality, echoed in the prison of his mind. I serve the Emperor now, forever. The story of Vaughn is a tragic one, but it is the story of countless souls across the Imperium, a grim testament to the fact that in the 41st millennium, there are fates far, far worse than death.